I took the winter post because no one else wanted it. That's what the supervisor said anyway. The Mountain Pass station sat far enough from the nearest town that the road crews only checked in once a week, weather permitting. My job was simple. Keep the sensors running, log conditions, and report if the pass became unsafe. Most winters, nothing happened. Snow fell. Wind howled. The world narrowed to white and silence. I liked that. The first week passed quietly. The radio crackled only with routine check-ins. The logbook filled with predictable entries. Temperature, wind speed, visibility. At night, the station creaked softly as it cooled, metal contracting like something settling into sleep. On the 8th night, I noticed the footprints. They appeared sometime after midnight, leading up from the tree line toward the pass. I saw them from the observation window while sipping lukewarm coffee, the floodlights catching their edges in stark relief. Bare footprints, no boots, no socks. They walked calmly through knee-deep snow, each step deliberate, toes and heels pressed clearly into the white. The trail continued for maybe 20 meters, then stopped, not turned back, not scattered, just ended. I told myself they belonged to a hiker caught unprepared, maybe delirious. Hypothermia does strange things to people. Still, I pulled on my coat and stepped outside, radio clipped to my chest. The cold was immediate and absolute. I followed the prints until they vanished beneath my feet. There was no sign of disturbance beyond that point. No drag marks, no collapse, just empty snow stretching into darkness. When I looked back, I realized something else. There were no footprints leading away from the pass. I reported it in the morning. The response came hours later, filtered through static. "Copy," the dispatcher said. "Probably old tracks. Wind distortion." "But they were fresh," I insisted. "And barefoot." A pause. "Log it and continue monitoring." So I did. That night, the footprints returned. Different size this time. Smaller. Lighter. They followed the same path, stopping at the same invisible boundary. The snow around them was pristine, untouched by wind. I didn't go outside. Instead, I checked the archives. The station kept records going back decades. Incidents, closures, accidents. I scrolled through old winter reports, my finger tracing dates until something caught my eye. A hiking group lost in a storm. Official cause, exposure. Bodies never recovered. The location matched the point where the footprint stopped. The temperature outside dropped sharply. The station lights flickered, then steadied. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the radio crackled to life. I hadn't touched it. "Conditions are acceptable," a calm voice said. "We're proceeding." The voice was soft, unhurried, almost reassuring. "Identify yourself," I said, my mouth dry. Static, then quieter. "Visibility is low, but manageable." I shut the radio off. Sleep came poorly after that. When it did, it was filled with dreams of walking through snow without feeling cold, of knowing exactly where to stop. Each night, new footprints appeared. Some were staggered, uneven. Others marched in neat lines, as if following instructions. A few sets overlapped, dozens of people walking the same doomed route over different years, all ending at the same invisible line. The logbook began to change. I'd write an entry before bed: high winds, unsafe conditions. In the morning, the ink would be slightly smudged, a second line added beneath my own. Conditions improving. The handwriting wasn't mine. On the 12th night, the radio turned itself on again. "Station, do you copy?" I didn't answer. "You're positioned correctly," the voice continued. "You're doing well." The tone wasn't threatening. It was approving. I tried to leave. The road down the mountain was buried under fresh snowfall, impassable even with chains. When I called it in, the dispatcher's response felt rehearsed. Remain on site. Weather window closing. That night, the footprints reached the station door. Bare feet stood just outside, snow melting around them, as if warmth radiated upward from the ground. I watched from inside, heart pounding, as condensation bloomed slowly on the glass. No knocking, just waiting. The radio clicked on softly. "You can let us through now," the voice said. "You've confirmed the path." "I can't," I whispered. "The pass isn't safe." A pause. Then, "It never was." I found the old rule sheet taped inside a cabinet I hadn't opened before. Yellowed, brittle. Pass protocol. Winter operations. Do not leave the station after dark. Do not respond to unidentified radio traffic. Never follow tracks into whiteout conditions. If travelers appear, report, but do not engage. The pass does not open itself. The last line had been underlined repeatedly, the paper worn thin there. That night, the footprints continued past the stopping point. They crossed the line. The snow didn't resist them. The radio hummed with overlapping voices now, calm, polite, eager. "We just need confirmation. Conditions are acceptable. You're the last check." I realized then what the station was. Not a warning system. A filter. Someone had to decide when the pass was closed. Someone had to mean it. The footprints weren't asking permission. They were waiting for agreement. The wind died suddenly. An unnatural stillness settled over the mountain, snowflakes hanging in the air like dust in a sealed room. The door creaked inward on its own, just an inch, letting cold spill across the floor. I stood in the doorway, staring at the dark shape of the pass beyond. The footprints waited. Behind me, the radio whispered, almost kindly, "You can rest after this." I thought of the logbooks, the missing hikers, the calm voices reporting safe conditions as they walked into nothing. I closed the door. I locked it. The radio screamed with static, then went silent. Outside, the footprints began to fill with snow. By morning, the pass was gone. A solid wall of white where the trail used to be. Impassable. Absolute. The footprints had vanished completely, as if they'd never existed. The dispatcher's voice returned, shaken but relieved. "Looks like you caught the storm just in time. Pass is officially closed for the season." I logged the entry carefully. Conditions unsafe. No passage. The station settled around me, quiet again. Sometimes, on the coldest nights, I still hear footsteps circling the building, patient and distant. The radio stays mercifully silent. The past doesn't let you through. It never has. And as long as someone is here to say so, it never will. I arrived at the station in early November, just as the sun began to behave strangely. Up here, above the tree line and far from any town, daylight didn't fade so much as withdraw. It lingered low on the horizon, pale and distant, like it was reconsidering its commitment to the world. By December, it would disappear entirely. The station was older than it looked on the maps. A squat concrete structure half buried in snow, bristling with antennae and weather instruments that hummed softly, even when the wind was still. Officially, it was an Arctic meteorological outpost. Unofficially, it was a place people stopped asking questions about. My job was simple: overnight monitoring. Record temperatures, pressure changes, wind patterns, maintain the equipment, transmit logs at the top of every hour. I was alone. That was part of the appeal. The first night I noticed the logs. I opened the main ledger to enter my name and start time, and for a moment, I thought I'd picked up the wrong book. The pages were already filled. Neat, precise handwriting. Each entry time-stamped down to the minute. But the dates were wrong. Some were from the 1970s. Others from the late 80s. Then the 90s. Then gaps. Long ones. Each section followed the same structure. Occupant status report. Sleep duration, emotional state compliance level. The names were different. Always one at a time. No overlap. The final entry, before my arrival, ended with a single sentence. Subject vacated. I wrote my name beneath it, feeling faintly ridiculous for hesitating, and began my shift. The station made noise at night. Not loud sounds. Just quiet confirmations. A soft click as a sensor recalibrated. A low hum through the walls when the heating system adjusted. It reminded me of a living thing maintaining itself. At 1 a.m., I transmitted my first report. At 1:02 a.m., the ledger updated. I hadn't touched it. A new line appeared beneath my last entry. Subject alert. Elevated heart rate. Normal acclimation response. I laughed under my breath. Nerves, I told myself. Someone messing with me remotely. Old stations ran on old systems. Quirks happened. Still, I turned the page. By the third night, the entries were more detailed. Subject exhibits preference for silence. Subject sleeps facing east. Subject experiences unease when logs are reviewed. That last one made my stomach tighten. I began sleeping lightly. The station seemed louder then, the hums closer, the vibrations more noticeable. Sometimes I woke with the sense that someone had just finished watching me, the air still holding the shape of attention. When I checked the ledger each morning, the night had been documented carefully. Sleep interrupted at 3:14. Dream activity observed. No corrective action required. I stopped dreaming. Outside, winter closed in. Storms erased the horizon. Wind carved new shapes into the snowdrifts each night. Supply runs were delayed, then canceled altogether. The radio crackled with distant voices, distorted by weather and distance. Station remains operational? They asked. Yes, I replied. The ledger confirmed it seconds later. Subject compliant. On the 10th night, I found the old reports. They were stored in a metal cabinet I hadn't opened before, tucked behind outdated equipment. The folders were yellowed brittle with age. Each one held handwritten notes, diagrams, and photographs. Photographs of the station interior. Photographs of beds, desks, doorways. Photographs taken from corners of rooms. The subjects were always alone. In the margins, notes were scribbled in the same careful handwriting as the ledger. Observation ongoing. Environmental pressure increasing. Isolation effective. I felt something shift then. Not fear exactly, but understanding. This place didn't just measure weather, it measured people. That night, the station felt warmer. Not physically, my breath still fogged in the air, but internally, like systems aligning. The hum deepened, steadier now, comforting. I sat at the desk and waited. At 2 a.m., the ledger updated without prompting. Subject adapting well. Another line followed. Transition window approaching. What transition? I asked aloud, my voice too loud in the quiet room. The lights dimmed slightly, then returned to normal. The radio clicked on. No call sign, no static, just a calm voice, layered and distant, as if speaking through walls of snow. Winter conditions, optimal, it said. Occupant stable. I didn't respond. You don't need to do anything, the voice continued. Just remain. Sleep took me without asking. When I woke, the station was dark except for the glow of the instruments. I didn't know how long I'd been out. Time felt slippery, unimportant. The ledger lay open. A new page had been added. My name was written at the top. Beneath it, the final entry was already forming. Subject demonstrates full integration. I felt the cold then, not outside, but inside my chest. A hollowness, like something essential had been carefully removed. I tried the door. It didn't open. The station hummed softly, approving. I don't remember deciding to stop resisting. It felt less like a choice and more like a realization that this was what the station was for, what it had always been for. Someone had to stay. Someone had to be measured. Outside, the storm howled, endless and indifferent. Inside, the station held steady, warm in its own way. The ledger completed its final line. Subject reporting complete. The radio crackled to life one last time. Station occupied, the voice said. Monitoring continues. I sat down at the desk, my breathing slowing, syncing with the quiet rhythm of the place. The instruments glowed patiently. The walls hummed. Winter pressed in from all sides, deep and absolute. And somewhere, far away, someone read the report and nodded, satisfied, never wondering who exactly was being observed now. The lake is never frozen. That's the first thing you learn when you move to the town. Usually delivered casually, like a bit of trivia, something to mention while handing over change at the diner, or pointing out landmarks to newcomers. Everything freezes here, they'll say, nodding toward the white hills and snow-choked roads. Except the lake. They never explain why. The lake sits just beyond the tree line, round and dark, its surface steaming faintly in winter like a held breath. When temperatures drop far below zero and every other body of water locks itself into silence, that circle remains open. Perfectly so. No ice, no slush. Just black water, gently moving. I moved into the house closest to it because it was cheap. Because it was quiet. Because I needed somewhere winter could swallow me whole. At night, the lake sounds different. Not loud, not dramatic, just present. When the wind dies and the snow muffles everything else, you can hear it shifting softly, a low, wet movement that doesn't quite resolve into waves. The first night I noticed the breathing. I assumed it was mine. I'd cracked a window for fresh air. The cold slid in and settled on my skin. As I lay in bed, listening to the quiet, I heard a slow inhale, then a pause, then an exhale. It took a few seconds to realize it wasn't coming from my chest. It was coming from outside, from the lake. I asked about it the next day. The woman at the general store paused a little too long before answering. Probably the ice shifting, she said, even though there was no ice. Water moves. Does it ever freeze? I asked. She shook her head once. Not all the way? That was all she offered. That night, I dreamed of standing on the shoreline, snow crunching under my boots, watching the water rise and fall like a sleeping animal's flank. In the dream, I knew, without fear, that it was aware of me. When I woke, my boots were wet. There's a list in the town records, not posted, not official. Just a handwritten ledger kept in the municipal office, tucked into a drawer with old maps and tax forms. I found it while helping repair a burst pipe one afternoon. Names, dates, the word missing written neatly beside each one. Every name belonged to someone who'd drowned in the lake, except none of the reports listed bodies recovered. They weren't dead. They were unreturned. The breathing grew louder as winter deepened. Not every night, just the coldest ones, when the air was so sharp it felt brittle, when sound carried too clearly. I'd wake at the same hour, never check the time, and listen as the lake inhaled slowly, deeply, as if savoring the cold air before releasing it back into the world. Sometimes, layered beneath it, I heard voices, not speaking, humming, low and steady, like people trying to keep warm together. I stopped going near the shoreline. That didn't stop the lake from coming closer. On the solstice, the town held a small gathering by the water. No fire, no music, just people standing quietly at the edge, hands tucked into coats, eyes fixed on the dark circle. Someone passed out candles, but no one lit them. "Listen," an old man whispered. The lake breathed. The sound rolled outward, heavy and slow, vibrating faintly through the frozen ground and into my bones. I felt it then. Not fear, but recognition. Like hearing a familiar voice you couldn't place. Beside me, a woman murmured a name. Someone else answered softly. More voices joined, overlapping, gentle and patient. When I looked around, no one seemed surprised. That night, the lake called my name. Not out loud, not the way people speak. It shaped the sound inside my head, using a voice I recognized from old obituaries I'd read in the library. A man who drowned in the 70s, a child from the 90s. They spoke together. "Come closer." I stood at my window, barefoot on cold wood, watching steam rise from the water. I understood then why no one ever tried to explain the lake. You don't explain inevitability. I found footprints in the snow the next morning. They led from my back door straight to the shoreline. Bare feet. They stopped at the edge. The snow around the water was warm to the touch, melting in a perfect ring. I crouched there, my breath fogging, heart slow and steady, listening as the lake breathed in time with me. I thought of the ledger, the word unreturned. The lake doesn't take people, it keeps them. I lasted 3 more nights. Each night the breathing grew more familiar. Each night sleep came easier. The cold felt less sharp. The house creaked softly, as if encouraging rest. On the 4th night, I woke already standing. I don't remember getting out of bed. I was dressed for the cold without recalling choosing the clothes. The door stood open behind me, snow drifting lazily inside. The lake waited. The water was dark, but not empty. Shapes moved beneath the surface, slow and careful. Faces turned upward, pale and calm. They looked warm. They looked content. They looked like they had nowhere else to be. I stepped to the edge and felt heat rise from the water, wrapping around my legs, my chest, my throat. The cold receded, embarrassed, no longer needed. The voices softened. "You can rest." I understood what the town understood. Winter takes everything else away. The lake gives something back. If you ever come here in the dead of winter and stand at the shoreline long enough, you might hear it too. The slow, steady breathing beneath the ice that never forms. If you listen closely, you'll hear more than one breath. And if the lake speaks your name in a voice you recognize, don't be afraid. It only means you've been remembered, and the lake never forgets.